Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I know that I hope today is a fine day for you. It's raining over here, so I hope that the internet will not be disrupted. Okay, so I hope that you're doing well. Okay, because I have had quite a bit of requests for doing chapter 12. It's because that I actually skipped chapter 12 from chapter 11 and I went straight to chapter 13. So I'm here to backtrack to complete the videos. I know there are not many people who are watching today because the Form 5s have already finished the exam. So it's just to complete my video. Okay, I hope the Form 4s are here today with me. Okay, anyway, so thank you for watching. And I will go right straight to the lesson. Okay, if you have any questions, please do ask on the comment comment box here, and I'll try to answer your questions as much as I can. Okay, let's start now. All right, I'm going to present now. I hope that you can see this. A minute, yeah. Okay, so I hope you can see this. All right, so I'm doing chapter 12. Today I'm covering chapter 12.1 and 12.2, which is the coordination and response, and also the nervous system. Okay, so 12.3 will be another lesson, hopefully next week, and I'll need another 2 more lessons to finish off the chapter 12. Okay, chapter 13, 14, 15, I already have in my channel, so just go over and have a look at it if you're interested. Okay, if not, for the Form 4s starting next week or the week after, probably you would like to have a look at it much later when you're already into the lesson. Okay, let's start now. All right, so chapter 12, why am I doing chapter 12? Because it's quite a complicated subject, quite a complicated topic where you talk about the nervous system, then you talk about types of neurons, and then the synapses, and also more difficult would be the hormones, the function of hormones and so on. Okay, so let's get right down to it now. Okay, 12.1, coordination and response. So in this chapter, I'm going to explain some of the terms that a lot of students will get it wrong because they do not really understand the meaning of the term, and they will use it in a different definition, a different way. So I'm going to clarify what is actually the meaning of these words like receptor, effector, and then you have words like integration center, coordination, response, and stimulus. Okay, first of all right, I'm sure many of us have come across this situation whereby we accidentally touch something that is hot, or we touch something that is painful. For example, okay, we get our fingers pricked onto a needle, right? So here you see automatically our hand will be pulled backwards. That means it's withdrawn. Our hand is withdrawn. This is actually a kind of protection. So everyone have this mechanism. It's a protective mechanism whereby when we touch something that is hot or something that is makes us painful, okay, gives us a pain, our hand will be withdrawn. Okay, so in other words, we have the ability, okay, we are organisms, we have the ability to detect changes in the environment, in our environment. Detect changes means something that happens, okay, so as suddenly we touch something hot, that is the change in our environment. Our skin suddenly becomes very hot, so that is the change in the environment, and as a reaction, we will respond. Respond means we will do something, okay, because it's painful, so we do not want to burn our fingers, so our hand will be retracted or withdrawn. So we have the ability to detect these changes, and we also have the ability to produce a response. Response is like a gerak balas, to do something in return. Okay, so this change, okay, that stimulates the person to do something. The change here is, for example, touching something hot, or the hot kettle, or the hot pot. That is the change. So this change is known as the stimulus. Okay, so first thing you need to understand is the correct meaning of the word, the terms stimulus and so on. Stimulus is anything that happens around us or inside our internal environment that can cause us to do something in return. Okay, so for example here, the stimulus here is the hot object. We touch the hot object. So as a response, we will pull our hand backwards, okay, back. So this stimulus is singular. If you have more than one, we'll call it as stimuli. So it doesn't matter, you can use either one, okay. Now, so another example would be when teacher asks you a question, okay, and you know the answer. So teacher asking the question, when you hear it, when you hear the question, that is the stimulus. And as a response, all right, you're going to put your hand up to answer the teacher because you know the answer. All right, okay. So the ability means the ability to do something, right? To respond. When you hear this question and you're able to raise your hand, so this shows that you are sensitive to the environment. This shows sensitivity. Sensitivity is the ability to respond to changes in the environment. So for the example of the touching something hot, so your finger is sensitive. Your finger is sensitive means you're able to detect there is something unpleasant here. It's something that is hot, and as a result, you are able to show the response of pulling your hand back. Okay, so the ability to respond to changes is known as sensitivity. So that means you're sensitive, you can respond. If you're not sensitive, that means I poke you, I slap you, and you have no response, that means you don't have the sensitivity. You do not show any sensitive, you're not sensitive enough to the change. Okay, and somebody pokes you, somebody slaps you, somebody call you, and then you do not respond. That means you did not receive the stimulus. You're not sensitive. Okay, clear? So I hope that you use the correct terms, all right, and define it in the correct way. Okay, now there are two types of stimulus. Okay, in our environment, there are two types of stimulus. Depends on where the stimulus comes from. So if the stimulus is from the external, that means outside our body. Okay, like what happens around us? You see bright light. Okay, you hear some loud noise. This is the external stimulus. Or you smell something foul. You smell something that is not pleasant. This is called external stimulus. Okay. Now there's another type of stimulus which is inside our body, and that is actually we call internal stimulus. Internal stimulus are the stimulus that is inside our body. For example, our body temperature rises because we are feeling too hot. Okay, this is the internal body temperature, not external temperature. I'm talking about the internal body temperature. Or maybe our blood pressure rises because we're very angry at the moment. Let's say, okay, somebody has made you very angry, so your blood is boiling, so you have the immediate rise in your blood pressure. That is the internal stimulus. Your blood pressure rising is internal stimulus. So you got to do something about it. Your body will try to bring down your blood pressure. Okay, so if you are able to do that, that means your body is sensitive. Your body is able to bring something back to normal. Something that is abnormal, you bring it back to normal. Okay, let's carry on. Okay, I don't see any questions here, so we'll carry on. Like I said, I don't expect many people to be watching, but if you do have questions, please just ask. Okay, types of stimulus. So just now we mentioned two types, right? One is the external, like for example, you eat something sweet, all right, you eat something that is delicious. So the taste of something sweet, okay, that is the stimulus external because it's outside your body. And you look at something, a picture that's very beautiful. Okay, if you know that this aurora, right, the occurrence of, we call it northern lights, and then it's you only see in countries that are very near the North Pole or the South Pole. So you see that's very beautiful because it stimulates your eyes. Okay, when you see this, so this type of stimulus are external stimulus. Lights, okay, sound, you hear something, a loud noise, smell, taste, surrounding temperature, meaning the external temperature, the temperature around you. You feel hot or you feel cold because the environment temperature changes, or pressure or touch. Something is pressing onto your body, that's pressure. Okay, you feel something that is rough, that is the touch. All these are external stimuli. Okay, what about internal stimuli? What are the things that can be considered as internal stimuli? These are the factors that are happening inside our body. For example, we have blood pressure. Like I mentioned just now, your blood pressure increases because someone made you very angry, right? Or internal body temperature. the core temperature of your body, which should be around 37 to be normal, and your blood sugar level, right? Maybe you had a sugar spike, you ate something sweet, right? Immediately your body, your after digestion of the food, you will have a lot of glucose in your blood. So it's your blood sugar level rises, and the blood osmotic pressure. Okay, this is the pressure in terms of the water content in your blood. Okay, so all these are internal. So here you see that there are two types of stimulus. External, you're going to know how to give examples, and internal, you've got to give examples. So these are the questions that can come up, possibly in objective. Which of the following is the external stimuli? External stimuli, A, B, C, D. Okay, and you need to know to find out which is external, which is internal. Okay, next, let's go on. Now let's look at receptor. So you got to understand some terms. Okay, let's start with the word receptor. Now, receptor are the special cells. We call it sensory cells. Sensor, we call it sensor, something that detects changes. So these are the special cells that detect stimuli. You have learned this in Form 3 before, in your first chapter, Form 3 lesson. Okay, science, Form 3 science. When you learn about their special cells and special organs in your body that can detect the changes in the environment. Example, okay, your nose. The cells at the olfactory cells are in the nose, the nasal cavity there. They are special cells that can detect the changes in the chemical composition of the air that you inhale. Okay, that you can detect chemicals in the air. Then for your eyes have the layer called retina, and you have cells called the photoreceptor cells in the retina. So they are sensitive to light. When light is the image is projected onto the retina, your photoreceptor cells will be stimulated and it will produce impulse. Okay, so the correct word to use here is when the receptor detects stimuli. Okay, or when the receptor is triggered by the stimuli, or when the receptor is stimulated by the stimuli. Okay, when you receive certain messages from the outside, that message is the stimuli. So when these special cells receive the message here, what is the receptor going to do? Okay, after receiving the message, it is going to be triggered. Triggered means initiated to produce nerve impulse. So the next thing what the receptor does is after receiving that, after being triggered or initiated by the message or the information, it will produce impulse. Okay, so remember, impulse is generated by the receptor, not by the nerve or not by the integrating center. It is the receptor that generates the impulse. Okay, and then your impulse now, after producing, after being produced by the receptor, the impulse must be sent somewhere to be processed. This impulse has to be processed by a center called integrating center. Okay, so this nerve impulse, your receptor does not process information. Your receptor is just to produce the impulse. Your receptor will be stimulated by the stimuli, and then the receptor will produce the impulse. The impulse will be sent to the integrating center. So your integrating center is like the CPU of your computer. Okay, when you type in the question, that is your input, and then your computer will process information, and then the result will come out. That is the output. So the integrating center is like your brain. It's going to process information. So I see the car coming. Okay, what am I going to do now? I should move out of the way, right? Otherwise, I'm going to be hit by the car. So your brain is going to process the information. That is your integrating center. What is the meaning of this message that came in to my eyes? What is the meaning of that smell? When I smell something that is pleasant, okay, I want to continue smelling it. When I smell something that is unpleasant, I'm going to move away. All right, that is what your brain is going to do. So your brain is going to process this information. Another center is this your spinal cord. All right, and how is it going to go through the brain and the spinal cord? It is through special cells called the neuron. Okay, so here I want to again summarize. So what is the first thing going to happen is your receptor is going to be triggered by your stimuli. Then your receptor will produce the nerve impulse. After that, the nerve impulse will be sent to the integrating center, meaning your brain or your spinal cord, by these special cells called neuron. These are called nerve cells. Okay, this one neuron we will see in the next lesson. Okay, so we want to see the beginning part first. All right, okay, clear? All right, let's go on. Now let's give you an example of a what we call the stimulus from the outside, external. For example, teacher asks a question. Okay, you're there attending class, teacher asks a question. So your teacher asking a question, this is going to be a stimuli. All right, you hear the teacher asking a question, and you so happen you know the answer. All right, of course you can choose to answer or choose not to answer. All right, just like now, some of you are there listening to me, but you do not want to write your comment. It's all right. Okay, or some of you are more responsive. You want to ask question, you can write. Okay, so this is a stimulus when you receive the message. And then your ear is going to get your stimulus. So your receptor is in your ear. It detects the stimulus, it detects the sound. So it's going to generate the impulse inside your ear, actually the cochlea, all right? The cochlea is inside your ear. It's going to generate the impulse, and the impulse will be sent to the integrating center. The integrating center is in your brain, actually. So the center that's going to process information, okay, your teacher asking the question, and now you going to think about it. You want to know, you know the answer, you're going to think about it. So that center, that process all happens in the brain. Okay, and it's sent through a nerve called sensory neuron. This is a nerve that sends it to the integrating center. Okay, so now in the brain now interprets the nerve impulse, interprets this message that's entering the brain, and then your brain is going to send an impulse out. Okay, send to the effector. Your effector is going to be, of course, inside your brain, there's going to be another small neuron we call the relay neuron. That one comes in the next lesson. All right, you don't have to worry about the types of neuron yet. So now the impulse goes out because you want to show a response. When you want to show a response, you have to have the impulse come out and send to somewhere else, which is your hand, let's say. Okay, so this impulse will move out of the brain through another neuron called the motor neuron. Okay, don't worry about this. We're going to revise it another time. And then it goes to your muscle because you want to raise your hand. When you want to raise your hand, you need muscle to do the job of pulling your hand up. So that muscle is called the effector. The effector is going to do the job of producing the response. Okay, so response is the response is you're going to answer the question. So your effector will receive the response, receive the impulse from your brain, and now your muscle is going to contract, and your hand will be raised to answer the question. Okay, so this is the response. So all of this we call the pathway. It always starts from stimulus. Okay, then it go to the receptor. After that, the integrating center, and then after that, the effector, and lastly is the response. So you can see there is a sequence here. Number one, stimulus. Number two, receptor. Number three is your processing center, which is the brain for this example. Number four is the effector to produce the response. Number five, your response is there when your hand is raised. Okay, so this is the pathway. The pathway is like the jalan. Okay, the pathway is how the impulse moves in order to produce the response. Okay, all right. So what about example of internal stimulus? Just now was external. When teacher call you, when teacher asks you a question, that is external. You hear from it's outside your body. What about internal? Example of internal stimulus. Okay, an example of internal stimulus would be like this. All right, your blood pressure rises. Someone make you angry. All right, or maybe you watch a very exciting movie. All right, a very sci-fi movie. All right, very exciting. So it makes your blood pressure rise. You are triggered by this stimulus, right? So your blood pressure is rising. Okay, that is your stimulus now. So your body will try to bring down your blood pressure. Okay, that is the correct way to do, because if your blood pressure is too high, it's not good for your body. All right, you're going to your heart will be pumping too hard. Okay, so that is the stimulus. Your blood pressure rises. Okay, so what's going to do? What's your body going to do about it? So there's going to be a place where it receives this blood rising. There is what we call special receptors called baroreceptor in your body that's going to detect, oh, now my blood pressure is high. Okay, so what happens is this receptor going to generate an impulse. Again, the same thing is going to be sent to the integrating center, which is inside the brain. But because this is internal stimulus, the center is not in the brain, not in the big brain there. It's another place that we call the medulla oblongata. So this is the center for external stimulus to process this information. So this is again sent through the sensory neuron. Okay, and then in the brain now, the integrating center, which is the medulla, is going to receive the nerve impulse, and now this impulse is going to be sent to the effector to produce a response. All right, so this medulla will send the message, okay, the impulse to the effector. So the effector is probably, now how to bring down your blood pressure. Okay, one way to bring down your blood pressure is to make the blood vessel a bit wider, the lumen. Okay, we call the diameter. So what happens is, all right, your effector, which is the smooth muscles around the blood vessel, they are going to relax. Okay, they're going to relax. So when they relax, the diameter of your blood vessel now becomes bigger. So we have the diameter, the blood vessels will dilate, that is become bigger, and as a result, the pressure will drop. Okay, so this diagram here shows the blood vessels, the smooth muscles will become relaxed, and that will make the blood vessels, the pressure drop. Okay, so this is what happens when your blood pressure rises. Your body will try to bring down your blood pressure by, one of it is to increase the diameter of your blood vessel. Okay, so this is receptor number 2. Number 3, you have this integrating center. All right, receiving impulse. Number 4 is the effector. Number 5 is the response. So the pathway is the same. All right. Okay, next. Now, so let's look at the definition of effector. So this is the part of the body that produces response. So this is the definition. Now, effector can be two types. Inside our body, we have muscles that can respond to the impulse to produce the effect, the response, or it can be glands. So for muscles, you know, we have three types of muscles. You learned that in chapter 2 of Form 4. You have cardiac muscles, you have skeletal muscles, and you have smooth muscles. So just now you see the girl who put up her hands to answer the teacher's question. Those are skeletal muscles because those are the muscles that are in your body, in your arms and your legs that can produce voluntary action. Pulling up your hand, putting our hand is a voluntary action. Okay, then the other group of effector can be glands. Glands are special cells that produces secretion. Secretions are liquid. For example, they produce sweat. They can produce enzymes. These are called exocrine glands. Okay, and then they also, some certain glands also produces hormones. So they are called endocrine glands. You're going to learn that in the next part of the lesson. Okay, in the coming 12.4, you're going to learn about hormones. All right, so all these are the effectors, muscles and glands. Okay, next. Now, coordination. What does it mean by coordination? What's the meaning of coordination? Okay, coordination refers to the working together. So when you have coordination, it means your body knows what the other part of the body is working. They can work together. So when you talk about, when you have a project, when you do a kerja khusus, okay, with your friends or group, I'm sure there's group work, right? When there's coordination is when everybody knows what everybody is doing. That's called coordination. Okay, when we say, of course, the best way to work is with coordination. Let's say if without coordination, A does not know what B is doing. Sometimes their work will overlap, isn't it? Sometimes I'm sure you've experienced before. Very difficult people who refuse to work with you. All right, you're doing your part and you think that the other person is doing their part, but actually maybe your job is overlapping because you do not know what the person is doing. They won't tell you, and probably you are not telling the person. So that means it's not working together. That means no coordination. When there's coordination, there is working together. Everything is working together in order to produce the correct or the suitable response to the stimulus. Okay, so example, when you have coordination, you're able to make sure the activities and the system in your body, they function very well. and they are synchronized. Synchronized means they work together lah. All right. The correct stimulus will produce the correct response. So they know what you're doing. Everybody knows what you're doing inside the group there. Okay, so that is coordination. So the coordination system, there are two systems. How does your body know or coordinate when you see something? How we're going to produce the correct response? Because you have nerves. Number one is your nervous system. Your nervous system is one of the coordination systems inside your body. Okay, so the first thing we're going to learn, all right, next week, afterwards, we're going to learn about nervous system. That is one of the coordination systems. And the second, we also have another one, which is called the endocrine system. Okay, this one we saw the word endocrine. So these are the systems, this is the system which produces hormones. So the hormones' job is also to coordinate what happens inside your body. Okay, so remember, coordination system for humans, there are two. We have nervous system and there also is endocrine system. So both of them actually work together, and all the systems, all the cells and the organs inside there work together to produce the correct response. We say the appropriate response for the situation. So when you see the danger comes, you know how to move away. When you touch something hot, you know your hand will know how to withdraw itself. Okay, so that means you have coordination. Okay, let's carry on. There are different types of receptors inside our body, many types. Okay, because different receptors will receive different stimulus. Okay, so the receptor, the function is to detect the changes. So it detects the changes. For example, light detects sound, detects taste when you eat something sweet or whatever. So these changes are known as stimulus. And the receptor is going to produce impulses. So receptors do two things. Number one is to detect changes. That means detect stimulus. Okay, that's the first thing. Number two, after receiving this information from the stimulus, after detecting the stimulus, it is going to produce impulse. So these are the two things that receptor does. Okay, and then you have different receptors inside our body because each type of receptor is sensitive to different types of stimulus. There is no such receptor that can receive all types of we call the stimulus. Example, you have photoreceptor, thermoreceptor, chemoreceptor, baroreceptor, mechanoreceptor, and nociceptor. Okay, so why you have so many types of receptor? Because there are many types of stimulus. So for example, photoreceptors, they are only sensitive towards light. Example are the cells inside the retina. So when the light hits the retina, the photoreceptor cells in the retina will be triggered and it produces impulse. Okay, thermoreceptor, the word thermo means heat. So this stimulus is change in temperature, or temperature is the stimulus. So when it becomes warm, it becomes hot, our temperature rises, our internal temperature rises, okay, then this thermoreceptor will sense this change in temperature and produce impulse. Chemoreceptor, this is for chemical. Chemo is chemical. Baro means pressure. So change in pressure. Mechanoreceptor, it is for mechanical, that means from word touch and pressure. So when you have the stimulus is touch or pressure, this mechanoreceptors in our skin will produce the impulse. Nociceptor, this is sensitive to impulse called pain, a stimulus pain. Okay, so it will, when we get ourselves pricked on something, our fingers touch something hot or something like sharp, the nociceptors will be stimulated. Okay, all right. Necessity of response. Why do we need response? Okay, very simple. Remember your example of touching something hot. You need to be able to pull your hand back because it's for protection, so you do not get burned. Okay, so the ability to detect changes in the environment and also to respond to stimuli is very important for survival. Okay, very important for animals especially. So we must know how to avoid ourselves from danger. Okay, so changes will produce response. The organisms will produce response to adapt to the changes in the environment. So if something happens, okay, for example, when the body temperature rises above the normal range, okay, you cannot allow your body to overheat, all right, otherwise you're going to lapse into coma. So the effectors will produce the response to bring back the temperature back to normal, to decrease the temperature. And that's important so that you don't die, all right? Your internal temperature rises and you cannot bring it back to normal, definitely you're going to die because it's too hot, all right? Your enzymes are going to be denatured. Another example is just now this one, all right? When you touch something that is, your finger gets into dangerous situation, all right? It gets burnt, it touches something hot, you can pull back your hand to avoid further injury, to avoid accidents and so on. Okay, so this is important so that you can continue to survive. So that means you do not die, all right? Okay, so we're done with 12.1. Now we're going to go to 12.2, which is we go straight into the nervous system, the components of nervous system. Okay, so the components of nervous system, they're actually, our nervous system is made up of special cells known as neurons. Okay, the cells are known as neurons. So special name, yeah? Okay, there are two components of the human nervous system. Okay, the first part is called the central nervous system, or in short, we call CNS. Okay, but exam, don't try to use CNS, write in full, all right? Then for the other one, the another component is called peripheral nervous system, or we say PNS. All right, for short only, we write CNS and PNS. To be on the safe side, you write in full for exam, all right? Now, central nervous system consists of two parts only, which is the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, very simple, very easy to remember. Central nervous system is what is in the center there, which is the brain and the spinal cord. So this is the central nervous system. The other nerves that you see all the blue lines that are running all over the body, okay? That one is under the other component called peripheral nervous system. Under here, there are two types. One is cranial nerves and the other one is spinal nerves. Now, where is the cranial nerve? You can see it's pointing to these nerves that is connecting the brain to the organs in your face or in your head. For example, to the eyes, to your lips, to your mouth, to the cheeks, okay, all your ears and so on, the internal organs inside your head, all right? These nerves are called cranial nerves and there are 12 pairs. There are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. Why 12 pairs? Because you have left and right. Okay, so they connect back to the brain. These nerves that connect your eyes, your nose, your mouth, and all that to the brain. They are called cranial nerves, 12 pairs. And then all the others, they are called spinal nerves, and there are 31 pairs coming out from the spinal cord, left and right, left and right. Okay, you can see here. So, right, let's have a look here. Right, so is it coming out here, left and right, left and right? These are the spinal nerves. So there are 31 pairs. Okay, all right, so that is the component, the structure of your human nervous system. Okay, now let's we look into each part. Let's look at the brain first. The brain has many neurons. These are the nerve cells. Okay, usually it's the relay neuron. More than 100 billion. Okay, don't have to remember this number, just to let you know how complex our brain is. And it is the main coordination and control center of your entire body. Okay, that's why the brain is very important. It's like the CPU to process all the information that comes in from the external stimulus, okay, and to process information and to produce the correct response. Main components, so remember the 5 parts of the brain. Okay, cerebrum, which is called the biggest part of the brain is called the cerebrum. When you see all the highly folded tissues there, the organ there is highly folded. Okay, and then you have cerebellum. So cerebrum and cerebellum, they are two different things. Okay, do not think that they're spelled wrongly. Cerebrum and cerebellum. Okay, next, hypothalamus. Okay, that's the part that is near the frontal lobe here, just at the base of the brain. And below there, you have 2 very important lobes, which are known as pituitary gland. Okay, they are part of the brain as well. And lastly, there is a brain stem here, which is now here will be called the spinal cord, right? At the beginning part of the spinal cord, there is one part here which is called the medulla oblongata. So all these are the components or the parts of the brain. Remember these 5 parts. Okay, and let's look at the function now. Okay, cerebrum. Okay, see all these colored parts. Actually, the cerebrum is divided into 4 major regions. Okay, you don't have to remember the name. I'll just let you know in a while. So the largest and the most complex part is called the cerebrum. Okay, it's the biggest part of the brain, and most complex because it can process a lot of information, and there are billions of neurons inside there. It's highly folded. So you can see here, it's not smooth. It's like folded in and out, in and out. It's highly folded. The reason here is to increase the surface area. Always remember in biology, right? When you talk about highly folded, it's always to increase the surface area. It is so that when there's more surface area, it can contain more neurons. And when there are more neurons there, you can process more information. That means you can do a lot of tasks at the same time. You can multitasking. Okay, you can carry out multitasking. So highly folded is a good feature. For a brain that's highly folded, that means there are more neurons. So a bigger brain is usually more desirable than a smaller brain. Okay, when you have a bigger brain, there are more neurons you can put inside there. So you can perform more functions at the same time. So usually animals that are more complex, more we call more evolved, okay, more modern, right? You have bigger brains. Of course, smarter as well, right? That's why human have the bigger brain compared to maybe a bird. Bird has got a small brain actually. Okay, right. Controls emotions. Let's look at the function. Cerebrum, there are many parts here. So you have different location to control certain things. It controls your emotion. Okay, whether you're feeling happy, you're feeling sad, emotion, hearing as well. All the sound, the information that comes from your ear will be channeled, will be sent to the brain actually to be processed. And it's actually one of the site here is called the temporal lobe. Sight, the impulse that comes from your retina will be processed inside your brain here as well. And that is at the back part of the brain. It's called the occipital lobe. Personality, your personality, whether you are helpful, whether you are friendly, whether you are aggressive, these are all personalities, okay? And they found it through actually in history. They found it there's a person who had an accident. This frontal lobe there was actually damaged during the accident. All right, now go not further. It's actually in the 18th century, 19th century. They found out that after the accident, the person's personality changed because the injured part, the frontal lobe was injured, and that causes the personality to change totally from someone who's very friendly and very nice to someone who's very aggressive and someone who's very unpleasant. Just because of the cerebrum, that frontal part, which is the front part here, that controls your personality. Okay, voluntary actions. Okay, your actions of moving your arms and your legs in order to move and so on, and also calculation, memorizing, learning. These are higher mental abilities, also controlled by the cerebrum. In fact, it's the front part, they call the frontal lobe. Okay, so they receive this cerebrum receives impulse from the receptor, and it analyzes and integrates information. Okay, that's why you need so many billions of neurons inside your cerebrum. Okay, and after that, after processing the information, it knows what to do, right? It gives you it's going to produce an impulse and send to the effector so that you can produce the correct response. Okay, so these are the names of the lobes. You don't have to remember, right? But it'll be good for you as an information. Frontal lobe, this processes information for calculation, memorizing, learning, and also your personality and emotions. Okay, parietal lobe, this is for the to control voluntary actions, the actions that come from the impulse that come from your hands and your legs and so on. And this occipital lobe, this is the processing information from the sight, okay, from the visual input from your eyes. So it's at the back. And then you have this temporal lobe, which is at the side. This is usually for speech and also for hearing. Okay, so if you can remember, try to remember. If not, doesn't matter. All right. Next one, cerebellum. Now this is called the lower brain. Okay, so this is known as the lower brain. So it's easy way to remember. Okay, you remember the L there, cerebellum. Yeah, double L there. L stands for lower. So cerebellum refers to the lower brain. Okay, it controls. So it has a different set of function? It controls and maintains your body balance, okay, so that you do not fall down. So if you have body balance, you're able to correct yourself. If you lose your balance, you're able to correct yourself. And also coordination of your muscle contraction, the movement of your arms and your legs for muscle contraction. So it coordinates your muscles. So if you have damage in this any part of here, you will lose your body balance, and you also do not have coordination of your muscles. Okay, next, hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus is the colored green here, or rather turquoise color there. That part here is the hypothalamus. It is the coordinating center for homeostasis mechanism. Homeostasis, I've done chapter 13 actually. If you haven't gone to chapter 13, you can have a look at chapter 13. Homeostasis is to bring back a situation or a condition which is deviated. That means, for example, let's say your temperature rises, you feel you're very hot, then your body will try to bring down the temperature. So it's like a mechanism to correct, it's a corrective mechanism to bring abnormal situation back to normal. So it is the control center there for this hypothalamus. Okay, it's a control center. So there is a hypothalamus, and it's a control center that regulates body temperature, water balance, that means how much water in your body, in your blood pressure. It also senses hunger. So if you're hungry, your hypothalamus is working. Okay, and thirsty, all right, and fatigue means tiredness. Okay, all this is the regulation center. This is the hypothalamus. It connects the nervous system to the endocrine system. So it's like a bridge between your nervous system and the endocrine system. Both are the coordination system. Okay. Controls also an important part here, which is the pituitary gland here. It controls the secretion of hormones, okay, from the pituitary gland. And the pituitary gland is called the master gland. Very important gland that produces a lot of hormones, that controls other glands. Okay, so that is your, okay, now next one, pituitary gland. Next part is, it is just below the hypothalamus. So here was your hypothalamus. All right, this part was the hypothalamus. So below there are two lobes. Okay, the master gland is also known as the master gland because it produces hormones that also control the other hormones, other glands that produce hormones. Okay, it consists of two lobes, anterior and posterior lobe. One that's nearer to the front part, the other nearer to the back part. Okay, it secretes hormone that control the secretion of hormones by other endocrine glands. That's why I call it the master. Okay, it's like the Indo master. That means it's the main one. This hormone will, when this pituitary gland produces this hormone, the other glands will know how to produce the hormone. If the pituitary gland does not produce these hormones, the other glands will not know how to produce hormones. Okay, that is the simple explanation. So it controls the production of hormones from other parts, other hormones, other endocrine glands. Okay, so next part, medulla oblongata. So medulla oblongata is located at the hindbrain. Hindbrain is actually the back part. Okay, we call it the hindbrain. The hindbrain is consisting cerebellum, pons, you see this bulging part here, all right, but it's not, you don't need to learn this, and medulla oblongata. What you need to know is where is the medulla oblongata, all right? And what is the function of medulla oblongata? It is just to control involuntary action. Okay, just now the voluntary action is center is in the cerebrum, but involuntary action, the center is medulla oblongata. Remember that. Okay, so examples of involuntary actions like heartbeat, breathing, food digestion, vasoconstriction, where your blood vessels become narrower, okay, and just to increase the blood pressure, peristalsis, the process whereby you've learned in chapter 9, where your food is being passed down the alimentary canal, and these muscles, smooth muscles in the esophagus and all over the place here, all the way up to the rectum, it contracts and relaxes rhythmically. Vomiting, coughing, sneezing, and swallowing, all this we cannot control consciously, but there is a place to control it, and it is the medulla oblongata, controlling all this involuntary action. Okay, next one, spinal cord. All right, spinal cord now, it's not the same as vertebral column. A lot of students will get confused. What's the difference of spinal cord and the vertebral column? Is it the same thing? Your vertebral column is known as the backbone. So this is actually bone. Spinal cord is not bone. Spinal cord is not hard. Spinal cord is actually tissue. Okay, vertebral column is actually bone. So I'll show you a picture. Now this is the vertebral column. When you look at the bone structure of a person, you can see at the back part of the the middle part, the middle of the spine here, you will see a series of bones. Actually, there are about 30, 32, 32, 31 bones that are fused. A few of them are fused together. A few of them are just connected, right? Not really connected, is articulating with each other. So that one is actually the bony part. But where is the spinal cord? The spinal cord is actually within the vertebral column. It's actually inside. So you can see here, you see the bony part is the one that's labeled in brown color, and the spinal cord is the yellow part here. It actually goes through. If you go to chapter 14, if you have finished chapter 14, there's one little hole inside your vertebral column that is the place where your spinal cord is. Okay, so that's the spinal cord inside the vertebral column. So don't use these words, the two terms, interchangeably. They are not interchangeable. Okay, spinal cord is tissues. They are cells which are conducting impulse. They are surrounded, this spinal cord is surrounded by cerebrospinal fluid. There's liquid around it to protect and also to supply nutrient to the cells, okay, the nerve cells. So it's made up of two things here, white matter and gray matter. So this is the spinal cord here. Do you see the gray matter is the green part here that looks like an H shape? Okay, of course, this is the bony part. This is the vertebral column, all right? The spinal cord is actually in the middle there. Okay, so we come to the last part here, spinal cord. All right, now next one. Function of spinal cord, that is to process the sensory information from the receptor, just like your brain also. But not all messages will come to the spinal cord. Only reflex action. For example, you touch something hot, you touch something that is painful, all right? This information comes into the spinal cord, not to the brain. So your spinal cord is the processing center for this kind of impulse that requires you to have immediate response. This kind of reactions are called reflex action. So they process information from coming in from the receptor, and as a response, they will produce information out to the effector. So they transfer information out to the motor neuron to produce the action of pulling the hand back. Okay? So it also serves as a connection between your brain and the peripheral nervous system. So your peripheral is all this, okay? All this. But how to connect to the brain? You need to go through the spinal cord. Okay? This brain is connected to the entire part of your body, to the peripheral nervous system, through the spinal cord. This is the middle there. All right? Okay? And now let's look at the spinal cord structure. If we slice through the spinal cord, you will find there are two types of tissue inside there. First of all, you find there's something called the gray matter, which is like an H shape of H. It consists of cell bodies surrounded by white matter. Now, don't worry about what is cell bodies. In the next lesson, I will explain, because you need to know the structure of the neurons first. So just leave it at first. In the next lesson, I'm going to explain all these terms. Okay, cell bodies, they are surrounded by white matter. Okay, so gray matter, that's gray matter. White matter is here. The entire area outside the gray matter, this is called white matter. They consist of axon. So axon I'll explain in the next lesson. Okay, covered in myelin sheath. So leave it at that first. So if we look at the entire structure, observe the direction of impulse. So impulse will come in through this called dorsal root. Dorsal root is here. Okay, the dorsal root is the part of the, this part here that connects, or it brings in the impulse into the spinal cord. Okay, so it goes in through the dorsal root, and at the dorsal root, there's one place here that is like bulging. It's like bengkak, right? It's like inflamed. It's like a bulge here. So that is called the dorsal root ganglion, which houses the cell bodies. So the cell bodies I'm going to explain in my next lesson. Okay, cell bodies. So in the gray matter, there will be a lot of cell bodies. All right, inside here, gray matter here, you have cell bodies. So these are the cell bodies. Okay, now what about impulse coming out? Okay, from here, the impulse coming out, it has to come out through another way, not through the dorsal root, but through the ventral root. So the ventral root will house the motor neuron. It will come out from the ventral root, and it is going to be sent to the effector. Okay, so remember the conduction of this impulse. The impulse will go in through the dorsal root and come out from the ventral root. All right, okay? So you see these three types of neuron. I'm going to explain that in the next lesson. So the three important names of the neuron is sensory neuron, going in, bringing in the impulse. Relay neuron is connecting in the middle there and passing the impulse to the motor neuron. So sensory, relay, and motor neuron. These are the three types of neurons that is going to function. Okay, that is going to we call it transfer the information. All right, it's going to send the impulse, and then it's going to produce your we call it response. Okay, so that will be my next lesson because I do not want to overwhelm you too many things. So if you don't understand what is cell bodies, don't understand what is axon, it's perfectly fine because I have not shown you what an axon is. I have not shown you what a cell body is. It's just that they are parts of these three neurons. So next lesson, I'm going to touch on these three neurons. All right, okay. So that is the lesson. Oh, sorry, one more part. Yeah, that was the central nervous system. We've just finished the central nervous system. Now peripheral nervous system, just a very short part. So the peripheral nervous system is just this one. Okay, including the cranial nerves, not drawn here. These are the cranial nerves. Okay, the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves. So what is the function of peripheral nervous system? Is to connect all the receptors and effectors from all over your body to the central nervous system. So without this peripheral nervous system, your central nervous system is right there in the middle. It cannot be connecting to every part of your body. So you need your peripheral nervous system to connect back to the brain, all right, and to send message to the brain. All right, consists of two parts also. Somatic nervous system. Your peripheral has got two. One is somatic nervous system. What's the difference? Okay, somatic nervous system is to control all the voluntary actions like walking, talking, writing. All this you can control. Conscious effort. And the other one is called autonomic nervous system, which is not automatic. Please be careful. Not automatic. It's called autonomic nervous system, which is controlling the involuntary actions. Example of involuntary actions like breathing. All right. This one is breathing, inhalation, exhalation, all right, and so on. You can see it's moving up and down. And then heartbeat, okay, your heart beating and pumping. And peristalsis, the contraction of the smooth muscles in the alimentary canal to pass your food all the way from the esophagus right down to the rectum. Okay, so that is my lesson for today. Okay, it took some time because I was explaining quite a bit. And next week, I'm going to continue the lesson on the three types of neurons. Okay, so in the meantime, happy holidays. I can still say happy holidays because it's there 1 week or 1 week of holidays. So enjoy it and please use your time to the best. Okay, try to revise your Form 4 lessons so that because Form 5, you have no time to revise your Form 4. Teacher will not teach your Form 4 subject again because there are Form 5 lessons and it's quite long as well. So she won't have time to revise your Form 4 lessons. Okay, so I will see you in my next lesson. All right. Okay, so thank you very much. I don't know who's watching, but thank you very much. Okay, so bye-bye. See ya.